with the Rudstone, they said that people would have like experiences like out of body experiences and like they would even get shocked. Sometimes people would get shocked by touching the rock, right? And have like hallucinations and then obviously seeing the lights and things like this. There was even one I read that locals there, because that's a very old town where it's located. It's like, I think it's like the town itself is like 2,500 years or maybe even more. I forget.
It looked really pretty.
And yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they say there, like the locals are like, yeah, they often refer to seeing little green creatures that are fairy-like in the area. So, you know, you combine kind of all those things. Is it the rock that's doing this? Or what's going on, you know?
Tonight we're discussing the monoliths or standing stones. You know, there's what I thought that was interesting was that they found them all over the world. There's 50,000 standing stones
at least,
right. Monoliths at least. The first one that they highlighted was kind of funny. I'm surprised that they actually brought it up because there was one in Utah, and it was that one that like I'd be shocked if it was actually aliens that placed it there. You know, it was some like artsy person that just
the new school one you're saying, the one that with the metal one.
Yeah, it looks like it's aluminum or something.
Yeah, the one that you could tell like, all right, some like college kids like made like something at it, you know, made some type of art and they just placed it there. And then, but what was interesting is that they didn't notice it for 4 years.
Right, it was in a very remote part of this valley that they say is practically inaccessible other than through helicopter.
Yeah.
Right. So is it feasible that some rich person or just I'm gonna pay money to go on a helicopter, you know, kind of thing?
Just to fuck with people.
But then, you know,
they also found multiples in other parts of the world a few weeks after that one was
hundreds. After that was like on the news and stuff, they started popping up all over the place.
Right.
And so that was kind of just a weird phenomenon. I think a lot of that probably was like, we'll do one now, or we'll do one now. And then it just kind of all went away. Right. But I think part of the analogy is like, you go to the 2001 Space Odyssey, right? And that the monolith is very similar looking as these kind of metallic, you know, about 10, 12 feet tall or something like that. And of course, the symbolism in that movie was that was like when we started to evolve, right? Was from when the monolith appeared randomly on Earth. So in some ways, it's kind of like symbolism, I guess, for these real standing stones around the Earth, right? Over 50,000 or whatever it is, in all different shapes and forms. And they think very old too, right? I mean, some of these things date back to like 10,000 BC or what they think.
So
the Karnak.
Or is it 5,000 BC?
It was 5,000 BC for Karnak. And I thought Karnak was really interesting because Karnak, it looked like basically a cemetery of just stones, but the stones are like up to 10 feet tall and weighing hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. They're huge stones. And then they're all lined up in these very strategic rows.
But the biggest ones are like 30 tons or something.
Yeah. But they're all lined up in these very strategic rows. Now, when they had the aerial shot of Karnak, the first thing I thought of was that it looks like a QR code. And I just thought, okay, that's a QR code. And the alien spaceship comes over, scans that QR code.
This is Earth.
And
a little thing pops up.
What is this planet? Oh, it's Earth.
On here we have human beings.
Yeah, we're gonna soon they will evolve.
Well, it's how it's like their version of like a NFT, you know, scan a little,
you know, there's one like recurring theme here that like it's like and that we've been kind of seeing for like, you know, the last few podcasts, you know, with the Coral Castle, and then what's the one in Micronesia? I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Namadal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Namadal. Where it's like you have these stones and that they are so insane as far as weight and size, and then we currently would not be able to move them easily, if at all.
Well, some are heavier than the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
There's the biggest one in Europe is 330 tons.
Yeah.
I mean, that is insane.
And it was like the thing was that, how tall was that thing?
Let's see. Oh, 60 feet tall.
60 fucking feet, man. And, yeah, dude, I mean, like, that's insane.
Broken Menhir is what that one's called.
And yeah,
fell over. Yeah. No, I was saying that one fell over. It's like in multiple pieces now, right? That Broken Menhir one.
But what I thought was interesting is that most of these things they found are made out of quartz.
Mm-hmm.
And then below the Karnak, they found a lot of quartz underneath.
There's fissures of quartz, but then there's like also the earth energy is very high there, right? So the earth energy is basically the natural energy that flows through the core of the earth based on the mantle and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you to explain that, because they didn't really go into too much detail. How do they measure that energy? And then it comes from the core?
Yeah, so like so much of the earth is like this inner core that frankly we don't really quite fully understand. I think otherwise we'd be able to control the energy on the earth, right? That's one of those stepping stones for like evolution.
Talk about
right
that.
Right, is that you get to control the energy on the earth. Now it's just like almost like the magnetic field in a way, right? They're correlated in many ways. You could think kind of like the magnetic field that's around the earth, similar to the energy that is currents inside the earth, and then also of course the oceans as well, right? They all have their own currents. And so I'm not quite sure how they would measure that, but there's got to be a way, especially in some of these places, like the other place in England that we can talk about. There's literally like magnetic anomalies, right? Just compasses going berserk, electronic devices going berserk. So it's believable that that's going on, right?
Skinwalker
Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah. And it was interesting because that one, the one at the church, Ruston or Rust.
Yeah, it's a ROTH maybe. I was trying to look that one up right now. I forget the name of it.
But that one, it's like 25 feet tall from the grass level.
Rutstone.
And then they found out it's also made of quartz, but then it's also 25 feet submerged below the soil. So it's a 50-foot tall piece of rock that's made out of quartz. That's specific. That's, I mean, now it's a church,
and a highly conductive form of quartz too.
Yeah. Now it's like in the graveyard of a church.
And why the fact that it's quartz is in particular interest because of the piezoelectric effect, right? Like that is the result of putting pressure of force onto quartz, and it produces electromagnetic energy, right? And so why would all these Karnak stones, I mean, how long is it? Like 2 miles long, these stones? I think it's over like 4,000 stones or something, right? And why is it that they're specifically placed on top of these like quartz fissures that are underneath the ground? And then on top of it, right, you have that supposed earth energy kind of accumulating there. They to me, that cannot be a coincidence. They had to know that shit.
There's the two big things, like I mentioned, there's a weight. Like when I look at this, I'm trying to take it apart in my head. Like, how could humans have done this? The big things was the weight, and the other thing was they were talking about when they started to they had an engineer come out and measure like the Karnak area, and then there was like areas where it was like the Pythagorean theorem, like these what do you call those triangles?
The Pythagorean triangles.
Yeah.
Isosceles, right? Triangles. I think.
And there's a bunch of them that are perfect, and like that, it was thousands of years before Pythagoras.
Pythagorean theorem. Pythagoras was his name.
Before it existed. So now you're looking at like 5,000 years less evolved than humans were at that point, and then being able to do this math that had not been invented yet, and or recorded yet, and then on top of it, weight that our current engineers, like Mr. Green was mentioning that the one at the in the church here, I was 25 feet in the ground. Like they're talking about how do they put that thing up on end when it's
yeah, because supposedly their theory was that they got it from like some bay that was about 10 miles away.
10 miles.
And then they actually not only had to move it 10 miles, but also go uphill, to the spot. So, I mean, how much did that one weigh in Rutston? Was it like 40 tons or something like that? I can't remember.
Insane, dude.
Am I underestimating it?
Definitely more weight than
40 tons.
Like a bunch of dudes could like move just themselves. Like what's interesting is not just the weight, but how do they figure out where to specifically place those stones? Because Headstone, the rustic Ruston place, Karnak, a bunch of places they were saying are specifically located along the Earth energy line.
Ley line is it?
Ley lines.
Mm-hmm.
And all these places that we've been talking about,
they're all on the same line.
They're all on these ley lines.
It's wild.
Well, speaking of, sorry to cut you off.
No. Yeah.
I was going to say about the Karnak with the lines itself there, right? There's a 1 mile stretch in one spot that if you're looking at it from above, there's 11 rows of these rocks perfectly parallel for like a mile. Thousands of these things, huge, why would it be? It's not coincidence, right? It's
also just the resources of like the culture back then to think, you know what, we're not going to spend our time focusing on like food and water and shelter and not getting eaten by like lions and bears and shit.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to place these rocks in this like grassland
for fun.
Like that's what we're going to do.
Right. I mean, yeah. And being parallel is significant, right? Because you need like modern engineering equipment to do that. Like they didn't just move them out there. Like they moved them and like did all this crazy math. And somehow, had some sort of technique to line them up rather than like you're saying, like gathering food in like a survival type lifestyle.
Unless my theory is correct, what I should have mentioned in a few podcasts prior, is that all of these ancient cultures actually met up somewhere and they decided just to fuck with the future of human species. Like, dude, let's just start building these weird pyramids, putting rocks in like weird fields just to fuck with people. 50,000 years,
Or how about not to fuck with people, but kind of like imagine if you were going to build like a whole little town of Lego sets, right? It's like, here's this planet. We're going to set it all up first. And then the people will come and we'll see what they do.
Yeah.
It'll be their home.
Yeah. So you didn't see the end of that episode, but it was really like they were talking about Tesla and his experiment, his experiments, and they said that a lot of the theories, like ancient alien theories, is that all these ancient standing stones act as like like a energy
worldwide
beacon,
power grid.
Worldwide power grid. And so they were saying how like a spaceship could, that's traveling across the space needs like a recharge. They pull over, they recharge from the Earth's energy, and then continue on their journey. I immediately thought, so ancient aliens are using Earth as a gas station?
Right. Yeah, it's crazy about that too. As they're talking about it, is like, that's how they did it in the past, but now there's all these, UFO sightings along power lines and power plants. So now that's how they use the Earth as like, a way to re-energize in ancient times. But now they, one could just hover down by like a power plant and do whatever it does to.
And also all these spots that they did mention that there has been UFO sightings, like at Karnak, Headstone or
Stonehenge.
Oh,
Stone,
Hudson
Stonehenge, yeah.
River.
Stonehenge, and then yeah.
It's
But there's been UFO sightings in those locations as well.
a
But
lot of these locations. Why is it? Is it they're still using it? What are those lights they see? Oh, one with the Rudstone, they said that people would have like experiences like out of body experiences and like they would even get shocked. Sometimes people would get shocked by touching the rock, right? And have like hallucinations and then obviously seeing the lights and things like this. There was even one I read that locals there, because that's a very old town where it's located. It's like I think it's like the town itself is like 2,500 years or maybe even more. I forget.
it looked really pretty.
And yeah, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah.
But they say there, like the locals are like, yeah, they often refer to seeing little green creatures that are fairy-like in the area. So, you combine kind of all those things. Is it the Rock that's doing this? Or what's going on,
Yeah,
The
but
Merlin
dude,
seems crazy to me.
if we ever make it out there to Karnak, we got to do a séance out in the middle of the field, in the middle of the field at like midnight. We got to do a
Take
séance.
shrooms.
Well, you made me think of like the Book of Enoch and like the Legend of Merlin, like these stories that somehow like traveled the test of time as like these legends, these people that did these supernatural things, and then they happen to be at places where like in Enoch, for instance, where there's like accounts of extraterrestrials, and then like you look at Merlin where it's like there is some correlation with Stonehenge and moving these stones and the stones floating, and it makes you wonder, like because thousands of years of evolution of a story. Anyway.
Exactly. And if you go look up like some of the historians that do that for like that's what they do their whole life is study that kind of stuff, a lot of these results end up being that like someone like a Merlin per se, which people would never think, oh, he's fancy wizard, in folklore. But the origins of that also involve him like helping to move the rocks, and he was like considered to be otherworldly. So how it morphed into him as the wizard with the cane or whatever, I don't know. But there is some substance there, right? The mythology of how these things get created, I feel like, is really important because they get morphed, like you said. And there probably is some extent of truth to these. Otherwise, I would say people just found this shit and then they made up a story like this is the only way they could have done it, right? This is the only way they could have done it. So therefore.
Yeah, it's possible too, like you back 5,000 years and then like they're sitting there looking at these stones and like, how on earth could we have moved these things? And they're like, yeah,
it must have been the wizard.
Yeah,
but just how do they figure out the ley lines? That's what's more confusing to me than how they moved it.
Yeah, sure, it's crazy for sure.
Didn't some guy kind of come up with that top idea though?
Did he?
I thought so. Maybe the guy's last name was Lay. I don't remember. I'm gonna look it up.
I always wonder if we've lost a certain sense of ability with just all the exposure to like we're always on our phones or on Zoom or watching TV and shit. Did we lose some like sixth sense that they had, that they were just kind of in tune with just more in tune with just nature and the earth and just how things worked?
I mean, look at medicine, dude. Like you have a lot of like homeopathic like things that are popping back up and trying to be more effective than modern medicine. Like yeah, it's like I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of math or physics or something scientific that is that they were more capable of completing. I mean, like we're such a narcissist there, and pompous, I should say, pompous society. Look back at these, we like imagine them like the cavemen, that the guy could come the guy go.
Fucking geniuses, dude. 5,000 years ago, man, these people were geniuses.
What if they were just so strong? Like like think of like an orangutan. Those fools can just like pick you up and just like fucking throw you, right?
Well, dude, if they're on that carnivore diet, man, Dr. Sean Baker, man, that guy's in his 50s.
Paleo diet.
Lifts like a bear.
I did paleo diet for a bit. That's just pretty hard diet to keep up with, but it works for sure.
We're kind of cruising back to it. I was just telling Mr. Green this, I think last week or two, and we're doing like a slow transition to it, and then we're doing just breakfast and dinner, and then like and then like has like and then like on
Some
the weekends
snacks.
kind of weekend. Well, there'll always be sex.
Yeah.
But the weekends kind of let it go a
Snacks.
little bit. You know what I mean?
Snacks, not sex.
Oh, snacks. Yeah. But like because it's like one of those diets that like when you try to go on, I remember like the day I broke. I was at what's that the Italian restaurant right by our old house,
Giorgio's.
Oh, that place the bomb.
That we were going there. I was just, I was back then. I was just getting like chicken or whatever, and they put the bread on the table. And I think I ate the whole basket of bread. Like a fucking.
No, I've been doing keto for maybe 2 or 3 years now. And some people have like it blends with me, but the thing is that people like, eat the bread. That's fine, but just go back to just have that be like your cheat that week or that that 2 week period. But like people think like, oh, I just had bread, so I'm no longer keto or I'm no longer paleo. Like they're so dogmatic about these labels. Like, no, you just had a cheat day. Just go back to eating what you were doing. It's fine.
Yeah, I feel like,
You know?
dude, if you like aim for 80% or 90%,
Mhm.
you'd be a lot more successful because you'd be like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm paleo, but this Saturday me and the wife went out and we had fucking
Right.
pasta.
You should be
Yeah.
allowed to cheat.
Fuck
We're not Tom Brady.
You're
Okay,
gonna be
and
more
it's actually
successful.
it's actually good, especially if you're on a keto diet. It's good that you allow your body to kind of digest some of that stuff and just kind of spike the insulin a little bit occasionally, just so the body gets used to like, hey, this is what it's like to have, elevated insulin,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's kind of off
We
topic.
we found with the breakfast in the morning, and so I was telling Mr. Green was that if we do a paleo breakfast in the morning, and we've been pretty adamant about that lately. That
Eggs
the
and
kids,
avocado.
it's seriously eggs. We do a lot of like meats and stuff like that. We do potatoes too, which is always like the big that was the gray area with the paleo.
I
But we
think
do
it's
that-
fine.
Yeah, I do too. But we found that the kids like moods significantly different than if they have like cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like ups and downs and stuff like that. And then like so a lot more sustained energy. So we've been kind of trying to like move towards that, like just kind of knocking out like 70% of the carbs. And
Yeah, I recently read a study about that. It was they just changed up the breakfast for, I think it was a group of teenagers. And they changed up the breakfast. They did experiments with like a high sugar cereal breakfast, and then for a few weeks, and they had them do like a low carb, high fat, eggs, bacon breakfast for a few weeks, and the energy levels were different, man. There was no spikes up and down. They weren't crashing. Like you said, their moods were different. They were able to like focus more during the day in class. They didn't feel like they were just like they didn't have that like cognitive crash. Makes sense.
You know what I like to eat for breakfast? Usually like 3 or 4 times a week. All I eat is a banana. That's my breakfast. And then I go till about 1 o'clock, and then I eat like something.
me and you are hella similar, dude. Yeah, I wake up in the morning, dude, and like I switch around all the time. Like I'll get like on the same thing for a couple months. Lately, I've been drinking these like Chobani Greek yogurt things. We get these. I drink
It's a lot
one
of
of
sugar,
them.
dude.
Yeah, it's not too bad. But I'll drink one in the morning, and then like I'll eat lunch 1 or 2,
Mhm.
and that's like, and all I drink is coffee until then, and then
Yeah.
I'm fine.
I usually try to stop drinking coffee though, like around 11, because sometimes, dude, if you eat something right, if you just a pot full of coffee, dude, and then all of a sudden you're like, here's a sandwich. My stomach don't like that sometimes, dude.
Coffee will give me acid stomach. Like if I have like 3 or 4 cups straight, it used to be a lot worse when I dipped, but I haven't dipped them on now. But
I've been doing kefir goat milk in the morning.
Kefir.
that's supposed to be super good for you. Is it like a hell probiotics and that shit?
Yeah, it's similar to like a high fat Greek yogurt in terms of the probiotics. And then
Pepper, right?
Kefir or kefir, but I found kefir goat milk at Trader Joe's. It's really good, and goat milk is a little bit easier on the stomach if you have any like lactose issues, because the lactose enzymes in the goat milk are a lot smaller, so it's easier for your stomach to digest. But
I gotta try it. I haven't drinking milk in probably close to a decade.
Dude, we're down to 1 now, but last time I talked to Mr. Green like 3 or 4 days ago, we had 6 gallons in our fridge. We drink so much milk in this.
Dude, whoa, wait,
You got kids.
You're
you got
down to
kids.
1 gallon?
Yeah,
I think it was. We spoke on Tuesday.
Yeah, there might be
like a gallon a day.
1.5.
Well, it makes sense if like they're having like multiple cups.
The kids like have like probably 2 glasses a day each, and then I drink like 3 or 4 glasses a day. Tara doesn't really drink.
I drink. I don't drink milk, but I'll drink. I'll do heavy cream in coffee or cooking.
Some Alfredo sauce.
Dude, just butter, Parmesan cheese, and heavy cream. That's all you need.
That's why doing like 80% paleo is like best for me, because like I can never say it's like that's what I think people fail at diets. If you try to say I'm going to be 100% something, it's like you're saying I can never have pasta again. I'm never going to have a burrito again with a flour tortilla. It's like, well, it's just not reasonable. I'm going to do that shit.
You be able to have a life.
And then like, because I really like the doing it weekdays, like super healthy, and the weekends is whatever.
Yeah, and it just depends on like what you got going on. If you had some like really severe autoimmune disorder,
it's different.
As soon as you have that diet dialed down and your body's not in pain, stick to that diet. If you're diabetic and you're on keto and your blood sugar's stable, stick to that fucking diet. But if you're just trying to like lose weight and kind of like lower inflammation, you're fine with just the 80-20 rule or the 90-10 rule. Yeah.
This guy named Alfred Watkins, he's the guy who is the ley line guy.
So how did he figure out,
he was an English author, self-taught amateur archaeologist, businessman, random guy. I don't know, he just kind of stumbled upon them. It seems like he noticed an apparent arrangement of straight lines with the ancient features.
So he just figured out where the ley lines were. He didn't have a theory of how the ancient cultures discovered where to place them.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I mean, he may have, but we were talking about like where the word ley lines come from earlier.
Yeah.
This guy coined it.
It's so fucking weird how just multiple cultures at different points of time figured out where to place this weird shit.
It's
look at Tesla, dude. That's like our culture figuring it out, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Tesla's really
ironic that it's Tesla now, and then the original actual Tesla was like the guy who, he was right there. I mean, he supposedly there's an experiment. He got all his money from JP Morgan Chase, right? And to help fund he was wanting to build these towers, towers that could supposedly generate energy wirelessly across big distances. And according to, history and stuff, he had claimed that he successfully did it, right? He stuck a light bulb in the dirt and it just came on, according to his theory. But so imagine if that actually went through and he didn't run out of money, right? Because they basically had to abandon it because he ran out of money. The world could have this just worldwide electric grid at all times at their disposal right now. You know what I mean?
I always wonder how often shit like that is found to be successful and then gets shut down because it's not lucrative for powers to be. AIDS or
I always wonder has some lab figured out a cure for cancer, and then someone's been like, dude, we're making way too much money off this shit. Dude, my sister, man, per round of chemo, it was like, the insurance covered it, but per round it was upwards of like $45,000 per round of chemo. It's fucking insane.
It's crazy.
I mean, they're making a lot of money off these people.
You ever heard of biohacking?
Yeah.
So there's a really good book I read about that not too long ago, and like they're like these kind of renegade biologists, like to students, a lot of them, like masters, doctorates of biology, and they like build their own labs and like fucking closets and shit like that in their house. And like there's a couple really interesting ones. That there was I forget there was a couple vaccinations that they like that in this specific book, something biohacking, that I read for school, that they had actually like figured out ways to make the vaccine like out of like household items or however they did in their little like lab, and they
Just
fucking
put a little
mass
ketchup
produced
in
half of
there.
it. But
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
not like condiments, but
No.
like it's interesting. Like I thought it was a really cool concept where like these people like this figuring like there's like a monopoly on medicine right now, and like it's not like they're not the people creating this shit are not so much smarter than other biologists like doctors like that. It's actually a cool movement.
There's biohacking people. They're just called Silicon Valley startup companies now. You know, and then once they have a product, once they figure out, hey, this shit works.
Let's reverse aging
on a preliminary scale. This works. Let's go to a VC company and get like $10 million, just for some seed money. See what happens.
I think there is one group that is studying that right now in the Bay Area. It's a startup around here somewhere they're trying to do the science of anti-aging. And if you can identify the genetic part of your DNA, right, that's like, this tells you to be 25, this tells you to be 30.
Well, the telomeres, right? As if you could figure out how to, because our telomeres shrink as we get older, and then I think when we're younger, they're longer. If you could figure out a way to elongate the telomeres, you would figure out, I guess, theoretically, how to reverse aging. At least that's according to, oh, fuck, where's that book? I don't know. I have a book. Dude.
Yeah, I believe it. Those telomeres ring a bell, but like, what would that look like if it were like, say you're 80 and you're like, I want to be 20 tomorrow. Like, you just like press a button and then all of a sudden like you instantly turn into a young guy, or it's just like you morph just into the young guy.
Yeah.
2 weeks of your body just like slowly becoming it.
But imagine being 80 years old with the knowledge of an 80-year-old, but the body of a 25-year-old. Now let's say that you were healthy, and let's say that you look like you were maybe like 75. Okay. How the body stopped aging at 75, but then we would continue living. Let's say that you were like 200 years old. Wouldn't you get tired of being around people? Like, would you like, at what point would you no longer have anything in common to talk about with anybody else, and you would just retreat into the foothills of the mountains and just meditate in a cave?
Well, there's got to be a group of people on Earth that are like you, right? And you would form connections with them.
I don't know. I think,
who knows?
Hey, you guys watch Black Mirror, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
You remember the episode where the guy's in the cabin and he doesn't realize he's being interrogated?
I think like
the kid died. He killed the father-in-law in the cabin. The kid went out in the snow and died. But he thinks he's there, but really he's just so. There's I forget. I don't remember. I did the math. I was in Afghanistan when this happened, but I watched the episode. At the end, he likes the cop to be a dick when he's walking around the room, turns the knob up, and I forget what it was, but it was like 100,000 years or something like that. I did the math. I'm just spitballing these numbers, but I remember it was insane. Like, they're gonna come back on Monday, and what his brain would be like being in that cabin for like 100,000 years. I remember thinking that like there's no torture as bad as what that is, because he can't kill himself. It's his mind,
Yeah.
And like that's like, so what was your brain at that level of being like?
Wait, what is this show called? Blackbeard, you said?
Black Mirror.
Black Mirror.
Mirror. Oh yeah. I've seen Black Mirror. I haven't seen that one, but I definitely
Black Mirror. There's some episodes that are really, really fucked up.
Yeah, I've seen a couple like that.
Yeah. What's the one, Crocodile?
Yeah, fuck that one.
Um,
That's just like,
yeah.
man,
that
like
one,
it's,
like I watched that, but
who kills a baby?
yeah, like I watched that and then I tried to go to bed afterwards. I'm like, no, I gotta watch cartoons for an hour.
Yeah, that's a twisted one, dude. Like, oh man, how does she kill the chick in like the shed? When she gets the chick in the shed, is it like?
I
Does she?
forget.
Does
I
she
forget.
hits her with a rock and she ties her up?
I just remember the baby. Yeah. But what was really fucked up is that I think one of the earlier episodes where uh you record everything that you see, like your
Yeah.
vision records
And then
everything that you see, and then you could play it back for friends, like, hey,
the
I had an
wife is cheating
interview,
on him.
or yeah, and then like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's such a mind fuck, because like at the very end, he's just living in his mind, replaying old memories that he has of like him and his wife when they were like in their prime.
You know, I bet they could do that now with the current technology. You know, you'd
But
have to have like a big old hard drive just strapped to you, or under the cloud, I guess, maybe even, right?
right, but
Yeah, you wouldn't need
I don't think
videotape anymore.
it can't be healthy on a psychological level to be able to
No.
relive every single memory and
Well,
every
shit.
single moment.
None of this shit's healthy, man. Social media is not fucking healthy.
Now you need to be able to forget things.
Yeah, because you
Right.
need to be able to forget
It's-
things so you can absorb other
Bec-
material, right?
Right. And you could like move on with what you're doing right
Yeah.
now.
Like,
Kind of thing.
You
Yeah.
could be so vindictive, be like, nah, man. I just watched it yesterday when we were in 5th grade. You were a dick.
I saw you.
Right there, yeah.